Hey guys, what's going on? Tony Purcell, founder of Team Awake, and in today's episode of Team Awake TV, I'm going to tell you a very, very powerful story that for me is completely life-changing. So the story goes, there's two guys, and God came down to two different people, and He approached them at two different times. They didn't know about each other, and He gave the exact same counsel to both of them. And He said to the two different people, He said, I want you to fly. He gave them a commandment. He says, I command you to go fly. And so person number one says, all right, well, if God says it, I'm going to do it. So he runs, and he jumps right off of a cliff. So excited to fly because God told him to. And he fell straight down, landed at the bottom. Now, let's say it wasn't a super high cliff, so he didn't die, but he got hurt pretty bad, and he's thinking, what the heck? I thought you told me I could fly. Maybe I just didn't believe enough. Maybe I don't have enough faith. So he runs back up to the cliff and jumps off again, and he falls, and he hits the ground again, and he keeps doing this over and over. And eventually, this guy says, well, geez, maybe I'm supposed to figure some of this out on my own, figure out a little bit of the issue. So he says, maybe I have to learn how to fly. So he looks at some of the birds out there, and he says, well, geez, it looks like to fly you need wings. And so he goes and he makes himself a pair of, big wings. And he says, okay, now I've done my part, so maybe now, God will let me fly. So he runs and he jumps off the cliff and he tries to flap his wings and he falls down. And again, he asks the same question, God, why didn't you help me? Why aren't you letting me fly? You told me to fly. I've been jumping off this cliff over and over, hundreds of times. He jumped off that cliff and hurt himself. He exercised all the faith that he could. He even went and built some wings. But then when they didn't work again, he said to God, you told me. You told me to fly. I even felt like I should build these wings, but they're not working either. And, after several hundred times of jumping off this cliff, the guy is just really, really frustrated and angry at God. Now let's look at person number two. Person number two got the exact same commandment from God. He says, I command you to go and to fly. And so he says, okay, I'll do it. So that guy, he goes out and learns everything that he can about physics and about gravity and about airspeed and about, again, let's just assume that this happened the time before there was airplanes. And but he says, God told me to fly, and there's got to be a way. So he learns everything he can about, about friction in the air and everything else. He looks at birds and he starts studying them, and he comes up with what he thinks is a good aircraft. And he goes to a good steep hill that he thinks he can try this out on. And he has this little, aircraft that's got wings. I'm not an artist, if you haven't noticed. But, his aircraft has some wings, and he says, I think I can fly. Let's say it's maybe one of those ones where he can still run. So his legs are sticking out here. He's running, holding on to his aircraft, and he jumps, and he doesn't fly. And this guy, when he doesn't fly, rather than looking at God and saying, God, why didn't you let me fly? He just looked at the laws and he says, okay, what's wrong with my aircraft? What did I not do correctly? What laws am I not understanding? What laws of physics? What laws of gravity? What laws of nature am I just not grasping onto? And so he goes and he tries again. Now this whole time, he's continually praying and getting as connected as he can to God. As he's creating each of his flying instruments, he feels like he's receiving inspiration here and there. I mean, he's studying everything he can. He's using his mind to think about things, and also receiving little inspiration at times when he gets stuck. And he tries and he tries and he tries. Let's say it takes him 2 years, and after 2 years, he finally builds the right craft that really does fly. And here he is, flying, and he finally did it. And he goes back to God and he says, God, I did it. I flew. What was the point of that? And then I look at the implications and how much air travel has done for us in our world today. And let's just imagine that this guy was one of those guys that made it possible. Okay, now I want you to look at the two different stories, because both of them started the same. God had a commandment, and he went down and he told somebody the commandment. The response was very different, and the result was very, very different. See, the result of the first guy is not only did he not fly, but he also ended up really angry at God and blaming him for everything. The second, and then was much more distant from God and wasn't close to him at the end of the 2 years. The second guy said, I am going to, it was just a different approach. He says, how can I learn? What can I do? I need to understand how things really work. I need to understand. And when things didn't go his way, he assumed there must be something wrong with the aircraft. I don't know the laws well enough. I need to figure this out, and continue to go to God for inspiration and continue to go for him for help. But he built the aircraft, and in the end, he was much closer to God and had accomplished the thing that God had told him to do. Had a great relationship with God where God could have continued to tell him what to do next, what to do next, what to do next. Okay, here's the difference between the two people. It was a simple shift in mindset, which is the first guy thought, God told me to do something, so God's going to do it for me. And he even put forth the effort, he exercised the faith, he jumped off the cliff, he built the wings, but the mindset behind it was God told me what to do, so he's going to do it for me. The second guy, his mindset was, God told me what to do, so I'm going to go and do it. And so when things didn't work and things went wrong, he said, how am I going to solve this problem? God told me what to do, so it's possible, but I'm going to figure it out because God told me to. Now, times when I get stuck, I'm going to go to God. I'm going to ask for help. I'm going to ask for inspiration. And I believe that whatever the story, however the story went, I believe that things like air travel truly was inspired by God. But it was inspired by God through people who said, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to figure it out. Even if I feel called and told of God to do it, I'm going to make it happen. So the reason why I tell you this story, this isn't a real story. These aren't two real people. But for me, it kind of is a real story. Because for me, this is the story of me building my business. And as much as I didn't want to admit it, and for a long time, I really, really struggled. And I didn't know. I didn't realize that I was doing this until 2 years later and looking back on it. But what I did was I jumped into my business. God said, share this message and do it in this way. And I said, okay, I'm going to do it. And I jumped into it. And it was kind of like I jumped off a cliff. I quit my job. I went right into it. I had no starting capital. And I fell right on my face. It was like I jumped off that cliff and exercised all that faith. And so again, over and over and over again, I kept going up the cliff and jumping off, up the cliff and jumping off, up the cliff and jumping off. But every time, the question that was in the back of my mind, the mindset that I had was, God, you told me to do this. You told me to share and spread this message. What's going on? Why isn't it working? Why isn't my business exploding? Why aren't people flocking to me? And I'll tell you exactly what was happening. I was the first guy in this example. Instead of saying, clearly I haven't figured something out about business, I need to go understand it. What does it really take to get somebody and actually move them and get them to a point where they want to make a decision, they want to purchase my products, they want to purchase one-on-one coaching with me? I didn't think that mindset. I didn't go down and break it out and try to, take it to pieces and understand and learn everything I possibly could about business and sales and marketing. Don't get me wrong, I did study a lot. I took all the money that I had and I invested well over $10,000 into my learning. However, when things didn't work, my mindset was, God, what's going on? Instead of, there must be something I'm not figuring out. I have to go and look at it. I have to go understand. I've got to break down my business and understanding where the missing pieces are and how to patch it. And I didn't do that because I had the mindset of the first person. And I thought I was being really, really faithful. And I thought I was being really, really righteous. But when I really looked at it, I was frustrated and angry with my Creator for telling me to go down this path and for it not working. I was blaming Him for everything. I was playing the victim to God. Because I said, you told me where to go, why aren't you making it work? Instead of having this second mindset. Now I want to tell you something that really, really totally changed my mindset and expanded my mind so much to let me see how much I didn't know and how much I didn't understand about business and how much more there was to learn about how to market to people, how to find people, and how to actually teach them something and how to persuade them to take action, how to really move people and how to get my message to the world. What opened my eyes to all of this was I joined something called Empower Network. And at first I thought, geez, these guys can't really teach me anything because they're just talking about money and marketing and I have this spiritual message and I'm being told by God what to do. But as I got into it and as I started to really, really learn, it expanded my vision and I learned so much about sales and about marketing, which a lot of people hate those words. I did for a while too. I'm going to redefine them. If you're one of those people, I'm going to redefine those words right now. Sales and marketing. Sales and marketing are finding people, getting their attention, and teaching them what you know. Getting them from whatever level of thinking they're on to the level of thinking you're on. And I'll suggest to you that no matter what you are, especially if you're someone who, like me, have been trying to build your own business and share the message with the world, sales and marketing is your key. And you need to master sales and marketing. Not because that's your mission. Maybe you're called to God to build an airplane, and the purpose for that is to globalize the world and unite economies and unite the world and make air travel possible. Maybe that's your long-term mission, but the first step is you've got to study and understand the laws of physics, and you've got to understand the laws of gravity. You've got to understand air pressure and friction and everything else. You've got to understand that, and that for you. If you're one of those people who you feel like you're called to share a message and you've been trying and trying and trying and trying like I did for so long, if you're one of those people and you're sitting there saying, why isn't it working? I was called of God to share this message. I know that people need this. I know that people need this so much more than all the other junk they spend money on. But I can't figure out how to get anybody to really listen. And there may be a part of you that's somewhere deep inside saying, God, why aren't you making this work? You called me on this mission. Why aren't you making things happen for me? If you're one of those people, I'm reaching out to you because I was there for 2 years, and for 2 years I suffered and I struggled. I went upside down on all my bills and on my mortgage, all along saying, why isn't this just working? Thinking that I just needed to exercise a little bit more faith and a little bit more faith and a little bit more faith. And the good news for me is I learned a whole lot about faith. I feel like I'm in a really good place. I learned great lessons about faith. And I probably could have skipped most of that suffering that I went through. And I suffered as long as I was trying to fight against reality, which is you've got to learn the real, true, correct principles of how to build your business, how to get your message out there in front of people and persuade them, and how to teach them, get them from the level of thinking they're on to the level of thinking that you're on. And specifically, if you have a message that can change somebody's life, people resist change. And so you have to master how to market and find those people and how to sell to them. Or in other words, how to convince them, how to persuade them, how to show them the light of what it is that you have to offer and to teach them. So, here's my invitation to you is come and join us in Team Awake, because the vehicle that we're using is Empower Network. And the training there is all about sales and marketing. I've invested tens of thousands of dollars into marketing training, into sales training, into business training. And I can tell you, the money I spent at Empower Network was the most valuable. 10 times better education than I received other places, and for about a tenth of the cost. It is the best training I've ever seen. Completely open my mind and expanded my vision and let me see and understand why it is that I've been struggling for so long and why people aren't listening to the message I have, because I didn't know sales and marketing. So my invitation to you is to come join Team Awake. And how you do that is you just join Empower Network. You come and join Empower Network. There's somewhere around this video, above or below or to the side, there's going to be a link. You click on that link and you follow it through. There's a page that will ask for your email. You opt in. You watch a free training video that will teach you the 3 most powerful ways to make money online. And then at the end of that, there's an invitation to join. And then you just do it. You just join Empower Network and you come on to our Team Awake team. If you follow these links, I mean, you'll automatically be placed onto our team in Team Awake. And together, let's take this message forward. I'm so passionate about teaching people how it truly is possible that you can share a meaningful message and you can make money at the same time. And the first step for you to doing that is to just come and join Team Awake by joining Empower Network. So this is Team Awake TV. Again, this is Tony Purcell. Thanks for being here and watching this. Come join us in Team Awake. And guys, let's wake up the world.